Okay, I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture a powerful, really mysterious ancient king. We're talking about a guy who commands a massive army with thousands of charging war elephants striking fear into literally anyone who dares to challenge him. But, well, here's the twist. Every 5 years, this same king hosts a massive festival where he gives away almost every single gold coin, jewel, and treasure he owns directly to the people of his kingdom. It kind of sounds like a mythical hero from a fantasy book, right? Well, he was completely real. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am super thrilled you're here because we are uncovering the true story of Harsha, the king of Kannauj. And as you can see, he was known as the last great ruler of old India. He was this absolutely fascinating mix of a fierce warrior and a deeply, deeply generous leader. So if you've ever wondered what on earth happened in India right after the famous Gupta Empire fell, this is for sure the guy you need to know about. As we kick off our journey today, we're going to explore Harsha's incredible rise to power when he was just a young man. We'll uncover his unique leadership superpowers, look at exactly how he brought peace to a chaotic world, and end on a massive historical cliffhanger that completely changed the map of the world. Trust me, you are going to want to stick around to see how this story ends.
Section 1. Rise of a Young Ruler. Stepping up after the Huns.
To really understand Harsha, we have to look back at the 6th century AD. Northern India was in serious chaos after the mighty Gupta Empire fell. So let's fast forward to the year 606 CE. Harsha's older brother tragically dies, and young Harsha suddenly has to take control of a fractured world that had been torn apart by invaders known as the White Huns. He belonged to a royal family known as the Pushya Bhuti dynasty. Now look closely at the word united here. You see, when Harsha took the throne, he didn't just want to rule some tiny piece of land. No way. He wanted to bring order, fairness, and safety back to the entire northern subcontinent. It was like putting a giant puzzle back together. He took these scattered, frightened territories and brought them together under one powerful banner, making the grand city of Kannauj the absolute heart of his new world.
Section 2. Building a massive empire. The power of Harsha.
Bringing people together back then wasn't exactly about just asking nicely. It required real strength, and Harsha was about to prove he was an unstoppable military commander. With his massive army, he rapidly conquered regions like Punjab, Bihar, Malwa, and Gujarat. And guys, look at this number. 100,000 cavalrymen. That's 100,000 highly trained soldiers riding on horseback. Add to that the thousands of massive, heavily armored war elephants we talked about earlier, and you have one of the most powerful military forces of the ancient world. I mean, it is just mind-blowing to think about the logistics of feeding an army that size.
With all that conquered land and absolute power, Harsha needed a capital city that matched his greatness, so he transformed Kannauj into a magnificent, booming metropolis. Picture this, a stunning, incredibly wealthy city lined with gorgeous buildings stretching 4 to 5 miles right along the banks of the mighty Ganges River. It was literally the center of wealth, power, and culture in northern India.
Section 3. The Generous Scholar King, a leader like no other.
Now, here is where Harsha's story takes a wild turn. He wasn't just some military conqueror who liked to hoard treasure in his massive city. He had a totally different set of superpowers, a deep love for the arts and unmatched generosity. Think about it like an allowance. Imagine if you got $10, but you only kept $2.50 for yourself to buy snacks, and you gave the other $7.50 away to help people who actually needed it. Well, that is exactly what Harsha did with his empire's tax money. Only 25% went to running the government. A massive 75% was spent on caring for the poor, the sick, travelers, and funding education and the arts.
All right, let's hit some rapid-fire fun facts about this incredible guy. He wasn't just funding art, he was actually an artist himself. Harsha wrote his own plays and poems. He poured money into the famous ancient Buddhist university at Nalanda. And remember that 5-year treasure giveaway I mentioned at the very start? Yep, he held grand public ceremonies to donate almost all his wealth. His court was so famous that a renowned Chinese monk named Huenzang traveled for miles and miles just to visit him, later writing detailed records about how noble Harsha was.
So the really crucial point here is that Harsha was a ruler for all his people. Personally, he was born a Hindu, but he was incredibly open-minded and tolerant. He built countless Buddhist monasteries and schools and strongly supported the Buddhist faith. Much like the great King Ashoka from centuries before, Harsha didn't just sit in his fancy palace. He constantly traveled across his vast empire to make sure things were running fairly and that his people were genuinely happy.
Section 4. The End of an Era. The Fall of the Empire.
Sadly, all great stories have an ending. For over 40 years, Harsha held this massive, diverse empire together. But the sun was about to set on the Pushyabhoti dynasty. Let's look at the timeline and see how this builds to our historical cliffhanger. Born in 590 CE, Harsha took the throne in 606 CE during a time of extreme chaos. By 612 CE, his massive army had expanded his empire across the north. He lived a life of art, charity, and brilliant leadership, welcoming scholars like Xuanzang in 643 CE. But in the year 647 CE, King Harsha died. And without him, well, everything changed instantly. Almost overnight, the massive, united empire collapsed. As the quote says, northern India broke into small states ruled by quarreling rajas. Rajas were basically local kings, and they just couldn't get along. Instead of one strong, generous ruler funding schools and protecting the borders, you suddenly had dozens of smaller rulers bickering and fighting each other for power. The order that Harsha built was entirely gone, replaced by total disorder.
And you know, timing in history is absolutely everything. While these local rajas were distracted, constantly arguing and fighting among themselves, the world outside India was shifting. A powerful new influence was rapidly spreading from the Arabian Peninsula. Islam was on the move. And this fragmented, chaotic, post-Harsha India was about to set the stage for a completely new era in the subcontinent's history, the lead-up to the Delhi Sultanate. But that is a story for our next explainer.
Before you go, I want to leave you with a question to really think about. If you suddenly became a ruler with 100,000 cavalrymen and endless treasure, what would you do? Would you try to conquer the world, or would you give 75% of it away like Harsha did? Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed uncovering the mysteries of history with me today, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on what happens next in our story. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.